Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Monir El Azzouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we'll try to explain to you more about artificial intelligence used in QARA compliance. So mainly we are all now exposed to artificial intelligence. And the idea of today is it good or bad or ugly to use it mainly within our quality and regulatory affairs compliance and use it for our own benefit and maybe create documents that will be sent to authorities like that, etc. So this is our discussion. So for that, I have with me RJ Kedziora, so from Estenda. So RJ, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hey, Monir. Glad to be here today. Looking forward to the conversation, and it is good, bad, and ugly. All
Exactly.
of the above.
Let's look at that. But first, before maybe to start with my question, can you make a small introduction of yourself?
Yeah, my name is RJ Kedziora. I'm one of the two co-founders of Estenda Solutions, a digital health-focused software development, data, and AI consulting company here in the US. We focus very much on the front end of healthcare, of what I think of improving patient health and wellness, where we work with startups, medical device companies, pharma, in developing new, better ways of improving health, very often having to go into clinical trial or when they go into the real world, go through the FDA regulatory process. So makes it a fascinating journey for us, taking on new challenges, new ways of improving life of our fellow humans, as I like to say.
Exactly. And I suppose that with Estenda, you are also using AI for compliance, all those kind of things.
We use AI more and more every day. I am a huge advocate of it. If you are not impressed by what AI can do, then you're not really using it.
Exactly.
So try a little harder.
So my first question is mainly about also this topic about AI. As you say, now we are all exposed to that. So are you seeing or hearing maybe or identifying a big increase of use of AI also with QA error compliance? So is this something that is now becoming like normal, or it's something that is starting to be new also in this discipline?
Yeah, I think it is new. You know, the technology is new. We're all still trying to figure out how to use it in the most effective fashion. But we're very quickly moving into it's becoming the norm, like that you need to use this now to improve your productivity and efficiency. And that's really what this technology is about. Internally, we started in low risk areas, and you see this a lot. How can we use this in low risk areas, particularly training? So instead of just reading documents or then we can create quizzes with those documents to assess the learning abilities or create different modalities of that information. There's a platform out there, the Google's Notebook LLM, like it will read a document and create a podcast for you where two people are talking about that content. It's fascinating. So now it's easier for us to create multiple modalities to help people learn and understand how to use those documents. And then you can, as you train systems with and about your process, you can have it ask questions to better understand and figure out how to do things. It can create documents for you. So yeah, it's huge boon for creativity, productivity, efficiency. And it's really about freeing people up to then do higher value tasks.
But I suppose here the danger, or if you are not using that correctly, is also the fact that you should have I suppose. I mean, you'll tell me, but I suppose you should have still the knowledge of what you are doing with AI for QARA compliance. It's not like you are completely new to the business, like a startup company that is starting fresh and they are just using AI to create their quality management system or they create their technical documentation if they have no clue mainly how it looks like normally.
Yes, I am a huge advocate of it, and that's the good side of the A side and the beneficial side. The bad and potentially ugly side of it is it does make up stuff. It's not very good at saying, I don't know. It's there and inherently to try and please you. So if it doesn't know the answer to something, it's going to have a tendency to create something. So you have to think of it like an intelligent intern, perhaps with a PhD, because it is incredibly intelligent and capable of answering questions. But make stuff up. So you do have to review everything that it is producing. And we're seeing this across multiple industries, where people are generating reports and then, you go in there and you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, that reference, it doesn't exist. So yes, you do absolutely 100% have to cross-check what it's producing. And as you said, if you're new to the industry, it can do a lot for education and helping you get up to speed, but you can't rely on it because you're going to look really silly if you go to the FDA with some documents that just don't comply with what they're looking for or a bad reference within that documentation. So hugely helpful, but you do have to be cautious.
And as you mentioned Notebook LM that I'm also using from Google. There is ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Grok. There is a lot that are coming. So, is there, within your knowledge, is there any specific tools that mainly quality and regulatory affairs people should maybe use because it's more accurate, or no? For the moment, there is nothing really like that is existing.
With the generally accepted large language models, the ChatGPTs, Geminis, they bounce around. As they each release a new model, they all start getting a little bit better than the other. As we're recording this, ChatGPT 5 just came out.
Yeah.
That's now a little bit better than the other ones. ChatGPT, I think, because it was the first to the market, has the most usage, the most widely accepted. But yeah, you could use any of them for this capability. But the key, if you can, and you have the opportunity, and there's numerous companies that are doing this, is if you can access or use a purpose-built model, something that was specifically trained on the idea of QARA in compliance, such that it will be more accurate. That company that's putting that model out will have tested it and making sure and put guardrails in place to help prevent the idea of those hallucinations. So yeah, I think for that learning, the experimentation, productivity, you can use some of the general purpose ones. But if you have access to one that's more specific, you're going to be better off.
And as you talked about companies, because I don't know for the moment if companies are all authorizing you to use ChatGPT or use those AI. So is there still, I don't know now, what are the, maybe you know about that, about the privacy policy or something like that from those tools. So is it something that is safe, that we can provide some private data or confidential data because I need to get some information, or it's something that no, you should really avoid that because it can be a problem in the future?
Meet Alex. He needs to create an electronic instruction for use. With EasyIFU, he uploads the document and in just a second gets a QR code. The code is printed on the packaging and shipped with the product. The user receives it, scan it, and the IFU appears fast and always up to date. Simple, fast, paperless. EasyIFU, the smart way to manage your IFUs.
Yeah, so you can go to these organizations and create your own private version of these, your own models of these to better protect your data. So I would not put in proprietary information into a general ChatGPT because you're not entirely sure what's going to happen. I think that's low risk from the perspective of things. There's discussions around if, I'm pharma A and I put in some proprietary information, is, pharma B going to go and find that information and understand, our trade secrets and everything? I think that's a little far-fetched. Is it in the realm of possibilities? Yes, it's in the realm of possibilities. But the key is that you can spin up your own large language model to ensure yourself and make sure that it is protected and that doesn't happen. So there are guardrails and protections that you can put in place. On a personal perspective, yeah, I don't put in, my health information
Yeah.
that's identified as me. I don't say, hey, my name is RJ Kedziora and I'm a, 50 plus year old. Da, 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 da. I'm not doing that, but I do ask it questions.
So it's also because recently we heard about the platform called WeTransfer that says that all the data that you will be providing to us can be used for training our AI model, etc. So it means that if I transfer some data through WeTransfer, so those files can be included and then used to train their model. So I mean they are open with that. It's just it's hidden somewhere inside the terms of use or privacy policy. So it's why asking those kind of things to be careful also of that.
Yes, absolutely. We all hate reading the fine print, but with these technologies, you want to read the fine print and you can even search for those words, what they're going to do with your data and are they going to use it for training purposes? Some do, some don't. So yeah, I would lean towards ones that are going to protect your data and not use it for training purposes.
So now, if I am in a project, in a quality regulatory project, etc., and I want to use maybe ChatGPT or any AI for my work, so what is the methodology that maybe you will be suggesting to people to reuse that? Because maybe you have some people that say, where should I start? What should I do? How it will be working? Should I start at the beginning and then it will give me everything, or should I come at different stages, or what exactly is maybe one methodology that you would be suggesting to people for using that?
Yeah, you have to think of these large language models, the ChatGPTs, as extremely knowledgeable interns. But when you think of that intern that you're going to use, they can provide value, but you need to give them really specific instructions. So when you are using a large language model, you want to break things down into individual tasks and have it focus on a specific thing. You can ask it to, create a project plan for you, to create a quality assurance plan or my test plan. You can have it do that. But if you don't give it the necessary context, just as if you didn't give an intern the necessary context, what it's going to create isn't going to be as valuable. So the more content you can give it, content and context and examples of what you want it to output, the better off you're going to be, the better job it's going to be. So think of it as, you're generating requirements, you're reviewing documents, creating test cases, test data. These are all things that the AI can do for you to help you be more efficient. We've done a lot of work in the blood glucose field, and it's like, well, create me a blood glucose trace, for 24 hours of a patient, with diabetes. And it generates a trace. It was fairly, I didn't give it a lot of information. It was very generic. I was like, well, now include the idea that they're eating 3 meals a day and generate that trace. And so now you see in that trace of data that the blood glucose starts going up after a meal. It's like, okay, make the lunchtime meal carb heavy. You can see it goes up a little more. And then you can add in factors like, patients taking this medication, and it adjusts that. Is it going to be as accurate as a human? No. But you were able to generate this data very quickly, very efficiently. And it's that 80%, then you want to make sure, that you take your expertise to get it to that last 20% to make sure you're testing all your edge cases and things like that. But that's where this technology excels.
So here, when we are in the projects, then we can say that you still need to be in control of your projects. For example, you are in the design and development for example, blood glucose device mainly. As you mentioned, you make a project plan, but you still have to be in control of what is provided and maybe update it and readjust and rediscuss, etc. Because we hear a lot of people now using ChatGPT for everything. Like, should I take this decision or that decision? Should I move here or there? How to do that? I mean, it starts to be crazy when we see sometimes things on social media that why they are using that. It starts to be crazy. So here the idea is also let's be in control of what we are doing and use that as an assistant, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I like the word assistant. It's a partner, a companion. It's there to support you and help you. But yeah, I really like thinking of it as that intern, like that you need to give it the instructions, and the better you can do at those instructions, the better the output that you're going to get.
And still verify what they are giving back.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're not giving an intern a task, and they can do great work. And we've had lots of interns over the years that can do great work, but you still got to double check it.
Exactly. We hear now about a new, and you talked a bit about that before because mainly giving context, giving information, etc. We hear now about a new discipline which is called prompt engineering. So can you explain maybe that for people what is prompt engineering? Because maybe we'll have more and more people that have like this qualification within their CV, like I'm a prompt engineer or something like that.
Yes, I am a prompt engineer. It's fascinating as this technology came to light. That term quickly became special. It's like I have this special skill of prompt engineering, and it is. There is a trick. There's some magic. You need experience with it to do a better job. And prompt engineering is just a fancy word to you having a conversation with the AI. This is how we interact with them. It's having a conversation, just like you and I. You can go into ChatGPT and talk about this podcast. You can say, okay, here's my topic. Tell me about AI QA compliance and the impact of AI. You can have that conversation with it. But to get the most out of it, that's where this idea of prompt engineering came in. It's like, how can you make those prompts, your conversation, better? How can you make the AI produce better results, be more efficient, to produce something that's meaningful? And it's fascinating as I walk around at different conferences and talk to people, and you start some people start playing with it, and hey, I'm not really impressed. Well, you're not doing that prompt engineering. You're not thinking of it as like the intern that you have to help it along the way. In just from that perspective, talk to it and ask it to respond like Bill Gates or Bill Murray or Bill Clinton, and you will get 3 distinct responses from the technology just by telling it to act like one of those individuals. And so the first and biggest key, I think, in prompt engineering is for any exercise you're doing, even a simple prompt, tell it to act like an expert in whatever field or thing that you're working in QA, in regulatory compliance. Act like an FDA reviewer, and it will improve its response. It is really that simple. Act like and then do that. The second thing, and I've talked a lot about it, is the context. The more context you can give it, the better understanding. As we generate requirements as part of like brainstorming exercises or test cases, it's like act like an expert in ISO 13485.
Yeah.
And it changes its response to in creating that and how it writes things out for you. If you're using user stories, it's like, okay, write a user story. And if you can provide an example of prior projects you worked on, it's going to do even better. And then that's also the examples of the output. Here's what I want my output to look like, as you're generating test data and you might need it in a specific format, it can do that for you. But I think ultimately, prompt engineering and the use of this technology is the first technology that you can use to learn how to use it better. So if you pick up a calculator, you can use a calculator to do incredible math, but you can't use a calculator to really teach yourself math. You need some external source. With these AIs and prompt engineering, very frequently, if I'm developing some complex prompt, I ask it to help me create a better prompt.
Yeah,
I've done that. The engineering for me, and very frequently it's like, hey, ChatGPT, ask me questions to better understand this task. And it's that simple. Like, I'm using it to be better. So you have this cycle going through. And it's also when you do ask questions, if you just say, ask me questions, they'll probably throw like 10 questions at you. So you can be like, ask me questions one at a time. And as you respond to those questions, it then is learning more and more about you. One key thing is, as we talk about this and answering these questions and that intern sort of the idea, where you do work with an intern, they're going to learn and retain this over time. The LLMs, large language models, ChatGPTs, they're getting better at retaining this information about you, but don't typically retain it long term. So
Yeah.
you do have to keep telling it this information again. Just because you told your intern that you are ISO 13485 and trained them in what that means 2 days from now, and you're using ChatGPT, you need to remind it. It's like every time you need to say, "Hey, we are ISO 13485. This is how I want you to respond." So some just important elements to be able to do.
Exactly, yeah, and I think, yeah, so mainly those technologies have some good, if I can say so, to help you. And we talked maybe about some of the bad and ugly, but do you have some warnings or some things to say people be careful of this or be careful of that, so that they have really the full guide on how to use that?
Yeah, and we touched on the one idea, the hallucinations. The problem or the challenge with this technology is that not just that it hallucinates or makes up facts, it sounds very authoritative.
Okay.
It sounds like it's right. When you're sitting there reading, you're like, oh yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
true.
And so you have to be cautious of not lowering your guard and be like, don't get lazy with it. So if you start using it and a couple months go by, it's like, okay, it's done really good. It hasn't produced any bad information in the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to check this. That's where you're going to get caught. So it's good for brainstorming, producing documents, summarizing information, but double check everything. And above all, I think don't relax. This is some of the things that we're seeing in the current research, and this idea of critical thinking, that it's breaking down our ability to think critically. There was in a recent article, they were in Europe somewhere, but they were doing assessments of medical images. And it's like these doctors who were very good at assessing medical images, after using an AI system for a couple weeks, when that AI system was taken away from them, their ability to assess those images had dropped down a little bit. So yes, you definitely have to be aware of that and keep that critical thinking going, because if not, those little sneaky hallucinations can come in there. So you do want to be careful of those.
And
the other the other
what,
aspect of that, go ahead.
Mainly what we have said now is important, is also the fact that I heard that also for maybe for children that can maybe grow with this kind of thing. So they will maybe have this easy way to create things or do things, but when you remove that from them, they will not be able any to create anything, like create a text, for example. We talk about Studio, and sometimes now students are using also ChatGPT to create their own text. And if you remove that from them and ask them to create that themselves, they are not able to do anything because they were not trained or used to do that.
Yeah, we do. It's just, I use the analogy of the calculator. It's like when calculators were becoming available, everybody panicked. The education system panicked and was like, oh, math is done. We're never going to teach math again because we have calculators. We now know that's not true. We all still teach and learn math as very valuable, and you can use a calculator. We're going through this now. This technology is in its infancy, and we're still trying to learn and figure out how to use it to our advantage, how to incorporate it into education, because it is powerful. But, my daughter, just got her first job out of college, and she's a 7th grade English teacher. Like, she's going to have an interesting challenge. But I think teachers a lot will see the evidence of students using it, because it does have that tendency to create sort of common content, use common words. So it's interesting. When I use these systems now to generate content that I then always check, I do have this list of words that ChatGPT frequently uses. It's like, well, don't use these words. One of the newer things is the double hyphen.
Yeah, exactly.
All of a sudden, the AIs have started using double hyphens. So now I just have a little caveat in my instructions with ChatGPT is like, don't use double hyphens. And so it's not in there, and I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it's useful for brainstorming. The other thing that you do have to be aware of is how this was trained, how these systems were trained. And I say that because they have a tendency to emphasize our biases.
Yeah, true.
So,
I heard that.
Yeah, and it's because that's where this data is coming from. It's us. It came from us. So yes, one of the criticisms of the AI is it can, show biases in its responses. And well, the reason for that is because it was trained with data that we created as humans. So that's the other thing that you have to guard against, particularly as you're generating test data. From that perspective, it's like, is it skewing one way or the other? That's where we need to bring our own human intelligence into the equation.
I heard also that most of AI agree with us. So it's more like they are not challenging us, they are more agreeing with us. So even when we are saying something wrong, they have a tendency to go on our side.
Yes, it does have a tendency to agree with you. It wants to make you happy,
Exactly.
is really what it amounts to. Are you going to use a technology that disagrees with you all the time? Probably not as much. It's one of those things we see in social media. It's just reinforcing your beliefs and your ideas. It's going to feed content to you that you like more, that you show more attention to. So in a similar fashion, the AI is like, okay, you asked this question. I don't know the answer, but I'm going to tell you what I think you want to hear. And, I could tell you, hey, buddy, you're crazy. It's just not going to do that.
Exactly, yeah. We see now that, as we said, manufacturers will start maybe to create more and more documents with AI, maybe from A to Z, so that they just have to review. And those documents will be sent to regulators like FDA. And we heard now FDA also thinks of using AI for assessing documents. So it's like AI talking to AI, or what would be this thing?
That is an interesting thought, and I've heard that in reference to like college classes and stuff like that, and where students are creating papers and then the professor's grading them with AI. Do we get there with this same technology within the FDA? We as developers and system providers, use the AI to create a document, and then the FDA reviews it, and everything's golden. And then nobody looked at anything. No, that is not the intended purpose. So the FDA did roll out an internal system, and they called it ELSA. What's interesting is they haven't been very transparent in how it was created, how it's being used, tested. The intended purpose is to make the FDA more efficient. That's the idea, so that it can help with document review, document content. Absolutely. But it pushed out pretty quickly as I've read information. I don't have firsthand knowledge on their system, but, as I've gleaned information and talking to different people, it's built on the Claude model out there. They didn't build a proprietary model. They are hosting it themselves such that you don't have to worry about your proprietary information being revealed to the world, which was a very good step. They're aware of that, protecting your knowledge. But yeah, they're using it for, all sorts of purposes internally. And the idea is to shrink timeframes, shrink drug development timeframes. And, as these cycles are long.
Yeah.
So even if you can make a small 10% impact, 20% impact on improving the process, we're going to be better off. But as we we're talking about the good, bad, and the ugly, one of the things that we've seeing in the peer review process where AI is in use, some authors are starting to embed in their papers instructions to the AI to say, yes, this is a good paper. Yes, this is worth publishing. So then the AI sees this and is reading the content and catches that.
Wow.
And incorporates it into its feedback. It's, not ethical. Nobody advocates for that, but we are seeing instances of where that happens. So yeah, we all sort of joked when we're like the AI is, creating the content and the AI is reviewing the content. You have to be cautious of those types of things happening where it's like, hey, yes, please approve this submission. So yeah, it's not replacing humans by any means. The FDA said this. It's not replacing humans, not replacing human judgment. It's being really used, to augment the process and make us much more efficient. So I do look forward to, what it can do and how it can help and how it can accelerate this process. But you do have to be aware of all of these issues.
And I suppose that FDA starts, maybe all the other regulators will maybe also think of using that, or I think there will be a laboratory for each of them to see how they can maybe implement such thing, because as you mentioned, it's an assistant, so it can help you to reduce some timeline. It can give you maybe the opportunity to not hire more resources and use the resources you have with the same thing. So there are some good also for that. It's just how to use it and the transparency for using that.
Absolutely. In one of those interesting cases where you can use this AI too is in post-market surveillance and understanding what's going on in the industry. So the FDA can use that, just like you as a company should be using it now too, and scanning various social media platforms and understanding what's going on out there. Be able to pick up those adverse events. The FDA is going to start doing it. So individual companies should start looking at that as well. But yeah, how can they share lessons learned so other regulatory agencies around the world can learn, we can all share knowledge and improve our capabilities.
Exactly. Okay, no, it was great. So thanks again for sharing with us all those information about AI for QARA. So who should contact you at Estenda? So what exactly mainly you can provide as a service or support the people that are listening to us now?
Yeah, if you are curious about AI and how to use it, just love having these conversations with individuals, with different companies kind of thing. So we first and foremost act in those early stages as an advisory service to help you get up to speed. Been fortunate as we've helped other companies develop products, whether they're a startup or very typically an R&D department of a larger, medium, or larger company. It's the R&D group that we're working with, creating these new ideas. We can help you, generate those ideas. We've been lucky that some of these people have put our names on patents because we've been so much part of the generation or the creation of the product that is eventually moved to market. Our clients own everything. We don't own anything. So fairly custom, fairly, commonplace in our industry. But yes, we can help you generate that idea, the software development, the data analytics around it. We have our own PhDs on staff to help out where appropriate. And then, looking at the regulatory submissions, as I mentioned, we are ISO 13485. So been long track record here, 22 years now, I think, if I do the math right without a calculator, that we've been doing this. So, very fortunate to have long-term clients. Some, 22 years, others, 15, 12, 10, long-term clients. So really enjoy helping others. That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
It's like, how can we work on these projects and help others, help improve, humanity. So.
Exactly. So where people can follow up with you, can they follow up with you on LinkedIn or on your website?
LinkedIn is the best place. It is RJ Kedziora. You'll be able to find me. Richard Kedziora finds me as well. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best. I'm always out there trying to share content about what we're doing, what I'm learning, what we're seeing in the industry to, again, just help others as we can.
Exactly. Okay, so thank you very much, RJ. So thanks for all the information. It was really great. Thanks for the conversation also about AI. It was a lot of love about potential possibility that will come in futures. So we'll see if it happens or not. And so for the people that are listening, so mainly you can go also on the show notes and check mainly all the information about Estenda or RJ Kedziora, so that you can maybe contact him directly on LinkedIn. Okay, RJ, so thank you very much and wish you a nice day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.